If you want to learn how to work with brown skin tones and create a glam Bollywood-inspired look, keep on watching. I like to start every makeup application with a setting spray, because that's going to help all the makeup products stick to the face and last much longer. Next, we need to moisturize the skin. My model has combination skin, so I need to be very conscious about the moisturizers and the primers I'm using. Let's not forget about eye cream. The skin under our eyes is much thinner than the rest of the face, so it needs special attention. Because my model has combination skin, I need to use two different primers, one for the oiliest parts and another primer for the rest of the face. Now we're going to move into color correction. When you're color correcting brown skin, you need to focus on the tone of the skin. The deeper it is, the deeper the shade of your color correctors. If it's a lighter brown, you need a lighter color corrector. For under the eyes, I'm using a darker peach corrector because I want to make sure I'm covering the tiny little dark circles my model has. Because I'm using a cream product, I'm first applying with a synthetic brush and I'm using my finger just to push the product on the skin. That's going to help the product to melt into the skin a little bit more and look more natural. For the acne scars, I am using a green corrector. Notice that my green corrector actually has a green undertone. It's not a bright green. I just need the color to camouflage that redness a little bit, and we're going to go over with a foundation and concealer on top. That's going to help us camouflage the redness and ensure the skin looks nice and even. I always use a synthetic brush and I press the product just on top of the redness. And I like to also use my finger because I feel like by using my finger, I'm going to help the product melt into the skin and make the finish look a lot more natural. My model also has a little bit of pigmentation under the mouth. So for that, I am using the same color I used to correct the under eye circles. So I'm just applying a little bit with that synthetic brush and I'm using my finger to push the color on the skin. Now we're moving on to foundation. I am using a foundation that's full coverage just to enhance the look. I am using a big fluffy brush and I'm applying the foundation on a stippling motion. I like to push the product on the skin to make sure everything will look nice and flawless. Always starting from the center of the face and pushing the foundation out. This technique is also helpful because we have done a little bit of color correction under. So we need to make sure every product we're putting on top actually going to be sitting on top without disrupting any of the layers of products that we placed under. Now with a smaller brush, I am going to use a lighter shade of the same foundation and I'm going to use that as my highlighter. Even though it is a glam look, I still want the highlight and the contour to look natural. I don't want anything to look too stripy on the face. So I am choosing colors that actually blend in really nicely into one another and the contrast is there, but it's not too crazy. Now moving on to the bronzer and contour. As you can see, I have two different shades here. One that's a little bit warmer, so that's going to be my bronzer. The bronzer we're going to be placing where the sun usually hits our face. So that goes around the forehead, a little bit on the top of the cheekbones, and sometimes a little bit on the nose. Now, the contour is the color that has a cool undertones. As you can see, it's the darker shade I'm using there as well. And that is going to be placed where the shadows usually hit our face. So that goes under the cheekbones, under the jawline, and if you wish, you can also use that same color to redefine your nose. Now I'm using the brush on my leftover foundation and I'm just going to buff the edges into the skin. Sometimes your contour and your bronzer might look a little bit too intense, so you can always go back to the brush you use your foundation and just buff the product into the skin. Now I'm using a cream eyeshadow to prime the eyelids. I like the MAC paint pots to do that. They dry really matte and it's a really good base for any powder eyeshadow. So I'm just going to use a synthetic brush and I'm just going to buff the color all over the eyelids. Now I'm going to move into the eyeshadows. I like to use a fluffy brush and I'm going to use a transition color first. Every eye design I start a little bit differently, so today I just decided to use a transition shade and a fluffy brush to start this look. So I'm just going to start defining the shape that I want to create that really big glam eye. Now with a darker eyeshadow, I'm just going to intensify that look. I'm just following the same shape, I'm elongating the eye, but I'm just adding a little bit more intensity. So we're going to start building the colors slowly until we get to the finished look. Now with a clean fluffy brush, I'm just going to blend the edges out a little bit. I don't want to have a harsh mark where the eyeshadow finishes and where the skin starts, so I'm just going to buff the color into the skin and make the transition a little bit smoother. Now with a flat brush, I'm going to start packing on the eyelid with the shimmer eyeshadow. I chose a really soft pink eyeshadow and I'm going to use a patting motion to deposit the color on the eyelid. Again, I'm working with intensity here, so if I want to deposit a lot of color in one spot, I'm going to be using a flat brush. Remembering as well that she has olive skin tone, and by using that pink undertone on the eyeshadow, I'm actually making everything pop. I'm making the eye look completely stand out on her skin. Now with the darker shimmery color, I still want to go into the burgundy space because I want the reds to stand out against her olive skin. I'm mixing the eyeshadow with a little bit of a deeper brown because again, I'm building intensity, and I'm going to use a small patting motion just on the outer corners of the eye to start building the intensity slowly. Once I'm done, I can go back using my fluffy brush and again blend the edges out. I want to have a really soft, smooth transition between the eyeshadows and the skin. Now with a very small pencil brush, I'm going to deposit that lighter shimmery color just on the inner corner of the eye. Smaller brushes are good because they give you a lot more precision and you can deposit the color just where you need. So I want to intensify that highlight that I have initially placed on the inner corner. I'm going to place the same lighter shade just under the eye, really close to the lash line. And I'm going to start with the lighter shade close to the inner corner, and I'm going to intensify as I move towards the outer corner of the eye. If I make any mistake, I can just use a clean cotton bud and remove the excess eyeshadow from the skin. Now is where the magic happens. I'm going to use a gel eyeliner and an angled brush. This is my favorite technique for applying eyeliners. I like to place the product on both sides of my brush because that's going to help me create a really sharp line. It's really important when you're doing an eyeliner to have your client looking straight ahead so you can see where the eyeline is going to be. Now that I traced the first line, I'm going to ask her to close her eyes and then I can just complete the shape. So I can always go back and forwards and apply more product as I need. It's really important to create the line really close to the lash line. I can lift the eyelid a little bit, as you can see, so it's nice and close to the eyes. So this way I can actually create a really sharp eyeliner. The secret is to keep a really steady hand and have a brush loaded with product and just following the shape slightly. This way you're going to build the intensity and create the shape you want. Now we're moving into eyebrows. I'm using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Eyebrow Gel to create the shape of the eyebrow. My model doesn't like her natural eyebrow, so she shaves half of it. So I'm just going to start by creating the shape of the eyebrow first. And I'm just using the gel to create the base of the eyebrow because I want to draw some natural looking hairs on top of it so the eyebrows look more natural. To do that, I need to use a waterproof product. I'm using an eyebrow powder and I'm using a mixing medium. So this is a cake sealer. So this way I can actually mix this product and create some natural looking hairs, and that's waterproof. The trick here is really to create one little hair stroke at a time. You also want to follow the direction of the hair because you want to make them look really natural and really thin. So now I still need to put in place her natural eyebrows because she does have half of her eyebrows is still there. So I'm going to use a really strong gel just to hold the hairs in place. Now I'm going to start with a blush. I like to use cream blush and a dual fiber brush to do the application because that's going to give me a really nice and soft finish. I am applying in the lifting position because I want to ensure that her face looks lifted and is a more modern application as well. If my blush is looking a little bit too strong, I'm going to use the brush I had my leftover foundation on, and I'm going to push the product into the skin because that's going to help diffusing the color and looks like the blush is coming from within. Now I want to intensify the look a little bit more with more bronzer. So I'm using a powder bronzer by NARS, and I'm using this really big fluffy brush to apply over the cheeks. This is just going to help intensify the colors we have under and lock everything in place. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the blush. We started with the cream blush and now we're going to go over with the powder blush. What that does is just helps intensify the color and locking the products in place. So that actually helps you with longevity as well. Now, one of the last things for me usually with skin is concealer. I like to do skin, go to the eyes, and then move to the skin again. Because I find that using the concealer right at the end, it's going to help me not just touching up anything that needs touch up, but also finish the look, clean up the edges around the eyes, and lift the eyes as well. So I'm just using a big dense brush and I'm applying the concealer just where I feel that I need. I'm also using my finger just to push the product on the skin because that's going to help me with the blending. Now to finish the look, we're going to move to the lips. I'm going to use a deep brown lip liner because I want to intensify the lip. Because this look is very intense, it's very glam, it's very Bollywood, I want to make sure that everything looks nice and glam, but still has a bit of an edge to it. So I'm actually creating that 90s inspired lip look on this model. And that means is using that really deep brown to create the lip liner. And then we're going to blend the edges in and use a really natural shade of lipstick in the center. When you're doing a lip liner, you really need to follow the natural lip line. I don't want to make her lip look bigger. I just want to intensify the natural shape of her lip. Also important to always check your lip liner from under the lip as well. Now I just want to diffuse the lip liner into the lip just to create a softer transition between the lip liner and the lipstick. So for that I'm just using a disposable lip applicator. Now in the center of the lip I'm going to apply a really light lipstick color because I want to create that contrast. Again, this lipstick has a pink undertone because my model has olive skin tones and I want to create contrast. So I had to take all of these into consideration when selecting my colors. To finish the look, I'm going to apply a clear gloss over the lip. That's going to help you create that glam look. Now with the finishing touches, I'm going to use a very small brush and a little bit of concealer just to really define the shape of the lip. This step is actually quite important and a lot of people miss it. I want to make sure that the lip looks really sharp and I don't have any lipstick bleeding on the outside of the lip. To lock everything in place, I'm going to use a setting powder. This powder is waterproof and helps the foundation last the whole night. She's actually going out to a wedding, so I need to make sure that she is going to have the makeup on for the whole night. She can dance, she can sweat, and nothing's gonna move. I like to use a small brush and be really precise with the application. I honestly don't like cake faces and I'm not a big fan of baking either. Now to lock everything in place, I'm gonna use a fixing spray. Now last but not least, eyelashes. First, I'm just going to apply mascara. I have curled the lashes off camera and I'm just applying a really thick coat of mascara. Again, this look is very intense, it's very glam, so I really need to have a really beautiful eyelash look. Also really important to use waterproof products, especially around the eyes. She's going to go out, so I need to make sure it's going to last the whole night. Now with the eyelashes, I like to place the glue on the back of my hand. I have already measured the lashes to her eye. And I'm going to let the glue dry a little bit before I actually apply the eyelashes on her eye. I can adjust the lashes if I need to while the glue is still a little bit wet. You can see a little bit of white there, but that's just the glue because it hasn't dried yet. Now with the final touches, we're going to touch up the hair, add some curls, and add some beautiful jewelry. And that's how you create this beautiful Bollywood-inspired makeup look. This is very suitable not only for brown skin tones, but for any other skin tones as well. If you like this tutorial and want to learn a little bit more about makeup, subscribe to my channel.